Hey, Dr. Jonathan Shepherd here. I am so honored to be with you again on a Friday evening. Excuse our delay, but we were having such a wonderful time in preparing for the show that we lost a little bit of track of time. We have an awesome panelist and a guest for you today. Today is Friday, April the 23rd, and I want you to come on in the room and want you to let me know that you're there. Send some comments out there in the comment section. Say hello, greet me, greet the fans, those who are out here watching. I want to let people know that you are watching Ask the Doctors, which is a broadcast that is sponsored by the Hope Health Systems, which is located in Woodlawn, Maryland. And we are a mental health agency, and we'll do you some good if you come and see us. Let me tell you, there's so much that is going on. So much, and I don't even know where to start. Man, there's just so much going on. Thank you. Oh, Carlidian Thompson is watching. Principal Thompson, thank you so much. We gotta get you on the show sometime soon. She was actually recognized by CNN, and we want to make sure that we highlight her. She's been also to Hope Health Systems to speak to our clinicians and therapists. So thank you again for watching. Chris is out there. Yes, thank you. So please send a quick hello and let me know that you're watching. But there's so much that is going on. I'm just going to just tackle just a little bit. There's breaking news that's out today. Breaking news: the J&J vaccine, Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It has been recommended that it be restarted with certain qualifiers in place. So we will probably do a show about that at some point in the future, but the advisory panel from the CDC is saying that we can go back to utilizing the Johnson & Johnson vaccine with these qualifiers in place. We know that there was 6 persons out of 7 million people who had rare blood clots. And so today's show is not to necessarily talk about that. But I am a little bit concerned before I bring my first 2 guests on about the supply of the vaccine now potentially taking over the demand. That's letting me know that there are some people who are yet hesitant and that there's a vaccine hesitancy that is out there. And so we want to help people to understand what it is to be vaccinated. And I encourage all those who have questions, please put your questions in the chat, and we'll try to, at some point in time, be able to address some of these questions that you have. I understand the hesitancy. I understand that even in Baltimore in particular, where the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was being manufactured, there were some issues in the plant. And I just hate that it has to give Baltimore another black eye. Man, come on, Baltimore. People from Baltimore, we really need some good news to come out of our city, because we've had enough bad news come out of our city. And so even with all of that said, that's not a reason why not to take the vaccine. It's not a reason why not to take the vaccine. Even with the rare blood clots, and they will add that qualifier, you're still more prone to actually get blood clots with the coronavirus, or due to the coronavirus, than due to the vaccine, believe that or not. And let me just tell you this. I, this week, have had more patients with coronavirus or COVID-19 than I ever have since the pandemic started. What am I saying? I have more people on my caseload now who actually have the COVID-19 or the coronavirus. No, they have not been to my office. They've been seeing through telehealth. So I was not exposing myself or exposing our office to it. But yeah, it's real, you all, and the variants are out there. So we got to do our due justice. That's all I want to say for today. I have so much more to say, and we're going to say a lot more as we panel today. We're continuing the series on how to lose and stay on top. It's not about a personal experience for me per se, even though I have shared some personal experiences, but I really want to talk about how we as a people we have felt like we have lost so much, and not felt we have lost so much, but yet how do we remain on top? And this week has been such another insightful week on how to be able to do that. So I'm honored today to have my familiar guests who are with me every month, my friends, Dr. Erica Draza and Dr. Marilyn Griffin. I'm going to bring them both on now at the same time. Yes. How are you doing, Dr. Draza? Dr. Erica?
I'm doing. It's been a week, but I'm here. I'm so happy to be here with you guys tonight. So good to see y'all. How are y'all?
Oh, we're doing good. Come on, show us that sweatshirt. Come on.
Oh yes, we gotta represent. Spell House. Repping the AUC today.
Absolutely. If there's somebody out there who goes to an HBCU, or if you attended the HBCU, come on, hit us up in the comments.
Yes.
We want to hear from you. We want to know that there are HBCU alum out there who are watching us. Even if you didn't graduate, if you didn't finish, let us know. Thank you. Courtney Jenkins is out there. Oh, she got her second
That's
shot.
my cousin.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. This and this is your mother. Is this your mother out here watching? Yeah, I think this is your mother. Yeah, Dr. Griffin.
Yeah, I'm sure she is.
Yeah.
My uncle, Johnny Jenkins, always shares the feed with one of our family Facebook groups. So, yeah. So it's good to be here.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Good to be here. Good to see my dear friends, Dr. Shepard and Draza. And I'm glad that all of you are here joining us as well. I will say I am tired, y'all. It's been a week.
Yes.
It really has been a week. And I'm tired. I'm looking forward to the weekend and trying to get some rest, some relaxation, and some renewal.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that. That is one of the points that we want to discuss today, because so many of us are exhausted. We're frustrated. We're angry. And this is one of the ways. I was just talking to a friend of mine before the show started, and I said, this really has now become a weekly therapy session for some people. It's amazing. Ask the Doctors has actually become a way in which people can express how they feel, let out some of that steam, and it's so I take on that ownership. Now, one thing I will not take on is if you do something that you should supposed to do. I'm not your physician. All right.
Exactly.
I'm not your physician.
We are not providing treatment.
We are not providing. Thank you. Simply assistance and guidance. All right. We want to be clear about that. All right. So wonderful. So many people are out there watching. And now let me just go ahead and bring our other guests on. I don't want to jump into too much because I think they need to be a part of this. But you all are regulars. For those who've been watching the Ask the Doctors, they are no strangers to this show. They're no strangers to me. I've known both of them. I've been on podcasts and broadcasts with both of them. This will be interesting to have all five of us together. It's going to be a synergy, you all. So before I even bring them in, I want to tell people to share, like this. We want to let people know that this is a insightful broadcast that's going to help talk about what has happened this week. So, all right, enough of that. Come on in, my brother Derek.
Hey, Derek.
Mr. Derek Scott.
Hey.
How you doing, sir?
I'm awesome. It's good to be here on a Friday.
Good. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we go further.
Well, I'm originally from Chicago, but doing some work on the east side of Detroit. Been in Michigan for the last 15 years doing real estate development, urban development work, and working with community members to help them redevelop their community. We've been back the block in Detroit and putting it back in the hands of community members and building businesses. So I get to have fun in the neighborhoods, dealing with my own folks' trauma and not somebody else's. So it's exhausting. But that's what I do on a regular. So I'm happy to be here, as always, with the good doctor and some amazing folks.
Wonderful. Thank you, man. Yes, Chi-Town. And then we have another Chi-Town brother here, Mr. Cody Kelly. Come on in, sir.
Look, I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you for allowing me to be with the Church of God in Christ's best and most talented Black men. I really appreciate you, Dr. Shepherd, and Derek Scott. So thank you so much.
No problem. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. Cody has a wonderful podcast. I've been on it. He ain't had me in a while, so I don't know. I must be off the list of getting.
No, you're not off the list. Look.
You and me both, Doctor. You and
me. I've been busy, man. Last couple of months, I guess I'll let the cat out the bag. So I've been made director over this tech company that's headquartered in Australia. So I'll be in Australia in a couple months. So, I'm over North America. So we're over 3 countries. I've just been busy. So my podcast has been going on, but a lot of stuff has been pre-recorded. So I haven't forgotten you. Trust me, I'm gonna get you back on. I've just been trying to be more strategic. When you start getting to new levels, you got to think about, like, wait a minute, I'm not gonna say that. So I've been on my Obama grind. I'm gonna have to really think like, what would Obama say and do? So I've been like looking at my old episodes, like I need to delete this. But I'm excited about being here. You can connect with me guys on Instagram, CVMK33. Podcast comes on at Mondays. You follow on YouTube at CV_K.
Oh man! Well, first of all,
congratulations!
Come on!
Appreciate you.
This is awesome. Please come on. Let's hit them up. Let's comment on Cody's elevation and promotion. And man, I'm gonna miss that because he just had a certain raunchiness that would just come out, just ease on.
Right? Yeah, it's still there. It's just
No, oh man, that's awesome. Oh man, I can't wait to talk to you later about that. That is good news to hear. So let's dive into this, you all. I hope that you all are out there shared and like this. So we're just going to jump in. Again, like I said, this is part 3 of a series that we've been talking about how to lose and stay on top. And I said, let's just continue this particular series because of all that has happened this week. And so we are going to have to pay homage and honor those who have lost their lives over the last 2 weeks due to police shootings. And what I want to do start with is the Derek Chauvin trial. Honestly, I want to start there. And as our panelists. They already know they have free reign. If they want to bring up the other folks as we're moving through, please do so. But I just want to start there with the Derek Chauvin trial. I'll be honest with you. I was holding my breath in my office on Tuesday evening because I was waiting for those words, not guilty, to come out of the judge's mouth. I'll be honest with you. That's what I was waiting to hear. And when I think about it now, and even as I say it now, it's a little bit embarrassing because this should not be the case when the evidence was so obvious and so overwhelming to what happened to George Floyd. And I've been saying that all along. And I even pulled out my mask, and I remember sharing this with you, Marilyn, Dr. Griffin. I bought this I Can't Breathe mask. And it wasn't because I can't breathe and I have the mask on. It's because of what happened to George Floyd. So I've been wearing this mask all this week, and it's been getting quite a bit of attention. People have been like, and I know they're looking at the mask. They want to say something, but they won't say it. But I've been intentionally wearing this because even with that verdict, I still feel like I can't breathe. Come on, jump on in, Erica. I've talked long enough. Tell me how you've been feeling.
I'm with you. Interesting because I remember we weren't really sure, right? Like they were actually going to have a verdict. We knew that they were done with the closing arguments on Monday. So I was thinking it was probably going to happen at the end of the week. So when I heard that the verdict was in and they were going to release, the verdict, I just felt heart palpitations. I felt a heaviness on my chest. It literally felt like someone was sitting on my chest. and I felt nauseous, and I'm like, what is going on? I was like, what did I eat today? Like, did I eat like something too spicy? And I was like, oh no.
No problem. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Or this is actually anxiety. I am literally sitting here with panic symptoms. Why? Because we have all been traumatized by hearing, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And I too was expecting that. But there was like a little part of me that was like, hopefully, prayerfully, with, the amazing job this prosecution has done with, the video this 17-year-old recorded. We have so much evidence. We've never had this much evidence. I'm like, if we can't get a guilty verdict with all of this, then what does that really mean? So I just remember being on edge. And it was so interesting because I was seeing patients, and I was seeing a patient when the verdict was actually read, but my TV was on like mute, so I could see half of it, and it said all 3 charges. All I saw was all 3 charges. And I was like, Lord, I'm just gonna focus on this session. And afterwards, when I saw the verdict, I thought I would have been relieved. There's a little sense of that, but the anxiety was filled with sorrow and sadness and despair. I just felt I wanted to cry. I cried. I just cried. And I was like, but he's still dead and he shouldn't be. Right. And this is only one person who was able to get, and I don't even know if I can call it justice, but, where we were able to see some accountability. And what about everybody else? So it wasn't my reaction. It was an emotional roller coaster. I just wasn't that level of grief after I saw the verdict. So that was my day. And then later on, to see what happened to Ma'Khia Bryant, that took me. I was like, okay, I just cried myself to sleep that night because I was like, this is too much. I have a 15-year-old, soon to be 16-year-old sister. And I was like, she's the same age. She is the same age. And we are all psychiatrists. We are child psychiatrists as well. And we have worked with children and adolescents who've had, all different sorts of psychiatric conditions. We've probably witnessed adolescents getting into fights in a hospital, right? We know how to de-escalate children, teenagers. So the fact that the didn't de-escalate her and they just immediately went to a gun, I'm just like, what? And then you think about Dante Wright, and it's heavy, y'all. So I was not relieved. I was grieving.
Pick it up, Dr. Griffin.
Yeah. Everything that you felt, I felt, and I believe that collectively as a people and as Black and brown people, we all felt the same way. Heart palpitations, just waiting, for in anticipation, as you said, of a not guilty verdict. And something that I watch CNN, that's my news show. And Van Jones made a statement, and I was like, oh my God, that's so right. He said, we woke up afraid to hope. And now I was like, oh my God, that's it. Because, we've been through this so many times, and we've had the not guilty verdict and outcome so many times that even when all the evidence was there, everything to me pointed to this man killing George Floyd, but we were still scared and afraid to hope that the right thing would happen.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
powerful. So
that is.
It is. And so, I cried. I said some thank you, Jesuses. But then at the end of the day, like you said, Dr. Draza, there was still this heaviness because it keeps continuing to happen. And why did it take so much for us to get there? I'm grateful, and my sister says that the young lady that took the video and got it out there, she needs to get a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes, she does.
Really, because she had the courage to stay there, tape it, and put it out there, put the video out there. But it takes so much. It took so much in order for us to get to that verdict. And then, as you mentioned with Makia, so I remember, goodness, the police are here to serve and protect, right? They're here to serve and protect us. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. And I think about an incident that happened to me, goodness, when I was in elementary school. I think it was sometime after school. I got jumped by a group of girls outside of school. And I don't remember if we called the police or if anybody called the police or not. Fortunately, this happened across the street from one of my best friend's homes, and he and his mom are now deceased, but they came out and helped. And just think, what if even back then somebody called the police came, and the first thing they did was shoot at the crowd, like they did with this situation. So there's still a heaviness that I think we all feel. And, we have to figure out how we can move on and how we can make things better. We talk about police reform, and there's so many things. And I know, Dr. Shepherd, we're probably going to get to this later, but in the midst, we have to just keep looking up, keep being hopeful and prayerful, and take to action so that this storyline just doesn't continue to happen over and over and over again as it has.
Yeah. Come on, hope pusher.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, I see a couple of my friends on here. And I hear, I hear Van Jones, but I can't ever wake up afraid to hope. And it's sad that, it's come to that where people have anxiety about having a sense of optimism and hope. I think Tuesday, the position I was in, and I probably should have gone last because I think I might be the only person of all the folks I've seen narrative from who was sort of confident in a guilty verdict coming down on Tuesday. And here's why. I was confident, and I watched sort of live, sort of the lead up stuff as they were getting ready to do the announcement or announce the verdict, I should say. And one of the comments that was made, the question was asked to the commentator, is police on trial in this verdict that we're about to receive? Are we going to get a verdict on policing in America? And the response was this, and I agreed with it. It was, I don't think policing is on trial. Derek Chauvin is on trial. Right. And police made it very, very clear. This is the one time where we saw the blue curtain kind of step back from the individual, where the police chief, his superior, testified against him. Other law enforcement officials testified against him. To kind of go to the extent of saying this is egregious behavior. This isn't policing. Like what the crap that's been done in the past, all of that was policing. The stuff we've gotten off for, that was policing. But this right here, this is clearly not policing, because it was so clear that a guilty verdict was necessary based on the evidence that was presented. And so I think because policing separated themselves so far from him, knowing that a guilty verdict would come down, policing wasn't on trial here in this case. And so it exonerated, in a sense, where there are folks who still feel not only that justice hasn't been served, but we're not going to see true police reform because the police didn't think anything was wrong from a policing perspective in this matter, because Derek Chauvin stepped outside of the rule book. Derek Chauvin did something that we weren't supposed to do, right? And for the person who was standing next to him who said, well, I did speak up. I said, maybe we should roll him over, right? You can hear that in the video. Maybe we should roll him over. You think he can breathe? And it was Derek Chauvin who said, no, leave him in this position, right? That's not our training. Let's step back from him so Derek Chauvin can get hung, but police can sort of still stay clean in this process. And I think the challenge that we have, if we don't pay attention to that, is that policing in America didn't receive a guilty verdict, right? And so we're not going to address police reform in a sense. Now, do I think addressing police reform is the answer? I'm going to say no, and here's why. Police reform is not the answer, because reforming policing structure is like trying to reform a cheetah to take away his spots. A cheetah has spots. It's his innate nature to have spots. When you talk about policing in America, when you talk about the origins of policing in America, where policing in this country came in after, in its structured format that we have it today, it came in after slavery was abolished in the 1800s, when we found the emancipation of slaves in the 1800s, right? And so if we look at the amendment and the words in the language in the amendment, it says slavery is abolished except by what? Indentured servitude for someone who has been incarcerated and has had their human rights taken away. The issue in this country was slavery, right? And having someone to work my land, capitalists trying to leverage cheap labor off of folks that they brought over here on ships and tried to, demand control of. And then when we no longer have free servitude, how do we go out and find the labor to continue to do that work? We enable policing to go track down freed men, trump up charges against freed men, so that we can enact a dumb amendment, right? To now have a legal process by which we make indentured servitude legal. So if policing in its origins was to create rules to always keep Black people or to always keep a certain group of individuals bound, policing as it evolves just got more creative, right? As we got rid of Jim Crow laws, we found other creative laws and ways to systematically continue to police people of color in their communities, to continue to keep them in a position of servitude. We can't reform something that from its origin was always intended to be corrupt. We got to tear it down and rebuild the structure with something that looks more palatable for our communities. And that's community policing. Maybe that's a structure where, like in the neighborhood where I grew up in Harvey, Illinois. And if anybody knows Harvey, Illinois, it wasn't one of the greatest places to grow up in. If you Google the crime rate in Harvey, on a scale of 1 to 100, it says 2. And I'll tell you that 100 is the best, 1 is the worst. Right. So I grew up in a neighborhood where it wasn't unknown to hear gunshots and stuff flying by the window. Right. Our first motive wasn't to pick up the phone and call the police to that situation. I remember having good relationships with the police department, but that was because my father, when the shooting would happen, he'd literally walk out the front door for hours and be outside, come back in. And when we saw the police, it was because Chief Joshua was collecting guns out of our living room the next morning after my father went around the neighborhood policing that night, right? Wow. And so that was the policing that happened in our community, so that those young men met somebody from the community who could talk some sense into them, who could say, hey, look, y'all better than this. We're not going to do this on this block. I know who y'all mama is. I know who y'all are. We're better than this. We're above this, versus somebody who knows nothing about these young men, and their only idea of de-escalating a situation is pulling a firearm on their side. Like, we'll never win in that situation. So I'm going to shut up there.
Wonderful. And I tell you, Dr. Draza, Dr. Griffin, I thought they're coming ready. Come on.
Yes.
Come on, Brother Kelly.
I appreciate everyone's input. I totally agree with Dr. Erica, Dr. Marilyn, and the Black Jeff Bezos, Derek Scott. I think he hit it on the head. I think initially I was saddened when I heard the verdict. I had taken my lunch at that time, and I was on the Stairmaster, and I started crying. And it was this feeling of relief, but then it became complex. It was almost like a false hope. And as excited as I was, there's the start of something, and then there's the implementation of it. And these are two different events. It's just like Officer Van Dyke when he was found guilty of killing Laquan McDonald here in Chicago. His sentence didn't line up. It was greatly reduced. And since this is a state case, he will be tried by the same judge. The judge has already made comments that he did not find the comments of Congresswoman, oh my God, Auntie Maxine appropriate, and that it should go against some of the trials that proceed. And if it's a 40-year max sentence, that means all 3 counts can run consecutively, which means, and I'm not a lawyer, so any lawyer out there, he can be home at the worst in half the time, which means 5 to 10 years, he would be back on the streets. So that's the weird nuance to it. And I think Derek hit it on the head. How do you go about restructuring or reimagining public safety? Because in its original concept, it was designed to be basically a domestic terrorist organization. And it doesn't mean that everybody who follows that same path. That's a lie too. I have family members that are in law enforcement, but it does mean that the culture of something will always supersede the policy of something. You cannot change origin, right? So how does it go forward? It's going to be complex because there's so much money involved. You know, we talk about pensions, you're talking about city and state funding, you know, you're talking about relationships, political relationships. You can't just defund it, right? Like it's going to go through this own process, its own transformative measures, and it's going to get hairy. I think that the difficult part is how should we proceed forward? I don't know why. I walked in a Walgreens today and I saw a police officer, and for the first time in my life, I felt nervous. And I've never, I grew up in Orland Park. I didn't grow, I grew up in Orland Park. That's like the best suburb you can grow up in Illinois. So I never had this weird view toward police officers. But now I'm so traumatized that feeling of am I next starts to kind of embed itself, right? And then I had to think, I was like, oh crap, do I have on the right clothing? Can you mistake my phone for my gun? I don't even believe in guns. So it's one of those things that the damage is so significant that his conviction can't undo what has been done.
Absolutely.
In order to move forward, you're talking about something that is going to dramatically change the system holistically. And I don't think either or party wants that because there's just too much to lose on their end, right? And then to give really the people the power to govern themselves would, even though it'd be constitutional, the fact of the matter is the Constitution was never designed for us, so we're not considered the people in the first place. So we have to have this. I always say we have to have this courageous conversation, and America is going to have to. And I've said this. If it doesn't start, and I've said this before, if it doesn't start at reparations, it can't start at all. So until we have that discussion that, look, forget this, we're going to start at 1619 Jamestown, Virginia. And everything after that, we're going to indict you on. You know what I'm saying? And that's the healing process. And if we can't start there, there's no path forward.
Wow.
This is excellent.
Can
I ask something, Doc?
Yeah.
Because he hit on a good point. And when I don't remember who it was, if it was Eric or Marilyn, but we saw a conviction of Derek Chauvin, right? What we didn't see a conviction of were the other police officers who held the man down, right? So we saw one man get hung, even though he had accomplices.
Yeah.
Now, I thought about this in the context of my son. I'm raising, Black young men. My son goes into a grocery store with his friends. He sees his friend pull out a gun to rob the grocery store, and he says, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. But he's with his friend. When the police pick them all up, my son is going to jail as a Black man in this country because he was an accomplice or an accessory to a crime. At the end of the day, there are certain rules that don't apply to certain groups of people, which don't give people confidence that we're going to hold police and law enforcement accountable in this country. And Cody said something perfect. Just because the origins of a thing is tainted doesn't mean that there aren't good people out there. I'm a police chaplain, so let me go on record. I've carried a police badge for the last 13 years as a chaplain, right? And so I'm out there every day, with law enforcement officials. But the issue is, if we don't hold the system accountable, right, then people are going to still have the trauma that Cody has, or the trauma that I still have from the police officer who stopped me on 94 on my way to my last final exam at the University of Michigan, and told him I was on my way to my last final exam. I had 3 hours to get there. He said, "You're about an hour and a half from Ann Arbor. You should be good." And then he proceeds to ask me, do you have drugs in the car? Do you have cash in the car? Can I search your vehicle? Can I? And after he detains me illegally and does an illegal search on my vehicle for 4 hours on the side of the highway, after finding my badge in the car and then handing me all my stuff back and saying, good luck with that final. I hope you're not too late. Right? That doesn't give us the confidence, right? I can do everything right. I can be a student at the University of Michigan with a student ID. I can be a police chaplain with a badge in my wallet. And at the end of the day, I don't have the confidence that I won't experience trauma at the hands of somebody who's a bad actor. And at the end of the day, the blue curtain has to be able to hold each other accountable, right? We can't hide behind the blue curtain and say, well, if I speak up, who's going to show up for the call? If I speak up, I won't get the backup that I need. My life's on the line. I think at the end of the day, we need both sides holding law enforcement accountable, and that starts with law enforcement.
So
what I want to do, racism, right? We have to address structural racism. It's all rooted in racism. So until we dismantle that and the white supremacy that exists, like this will continue to happen, the racial profiling, all of that. So yeah, I think we have to, it's deeper, right? It's so much, and it's not going to be like a 1 hour training session on racism. That's not going to be right. Like we need more than that. We need to like tear it down because that is where the roots are. It's rooted in structural racism. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dr. Shepherd.
No, because what I want you to do, because we have you here. I mean, we specialize in trauma. We specialize in trauma as psychiatrists, and so I want you to speak to that trauma, and then I have a question that's going to address how we move forward as far as change. But for those of you out there, thank you, Derek, and some people are asking. Taylor McBride is out there. How you doing, Taylor?
Hey, Taylor.
Yeah, she's asking, how did you get that situation rectified? Did you let it go? But some people are still holding on. And I've been in situations. So I want you to speak to that, Dr. Draws. I want you to speak to that, Dr. Griffin. How do you help the people out there who have been traumatized? Because we have to be able to move forward. And then we're going to come back to some of this momentum that needs to take place as far as policy change. Absolutely. Help us.
Well, first thing
I think the first step is naming it for what it is. Right? That's the first thing. You have to acknowledge that it was a traumatic experience. And then seek the appropriate help. And help for trauma, it starts with therapy. And it's a long process. Trauma work is going to be difficult because as you are talking about and talking about your experience, you may even start to re-experience it, have flashbacks of what actually happened, and feel like you're right there in that moment, right back in that moment. So you have to name it, be prepared to do the work, and also have a good support system, right? Because there may be times, and have people around you that understand what may be happening if you have a trigger. It could be just walking down a certain street, or, for you, Derek, just getting back on 94 could be triggering to you. So being also able to identify the things that trigger you and take you back to that moment, working through those things. And sometimes medication would also be helpful because your level of anxiety may be so high that you can't even do the work that's necessary. So those are, just a few things that you need to take into consideration when dealing with trauma and trying to get help to move beyond it.
Gotcha.
I completely agree. And I would just add the naming part of it is also recognize symptoms of how trauma shows up in our bodies. And I say our bodies because it can be a very physical experience. I mentioned at the beginning, I had some panic symptoms, heart palpitations, chest pain, stomach pain, GI distress. Your bowels start to be very active or even inactive. Also, some people can be very irritable. or just really sensitive emotionally. And we see that, right? We're seeing lots of people are just super emotional right now, super sensitive, because this is traumatic. And then there are other symptoms to look out for. Dr. Griffin talked about flashbacks, sometimes maybe not even flashbacks, but just intrusive thoughts about that trauma, whether or not you've experienced it or not. And I think that's really important too. We can be traumatized, not only if we have those experiences like Derek had, God forbid, but we're watching these things on the news. And at some point we have to say enough is enough, because seeing a video of a 16-year-old get shot by the police is actually traumatic. And we can have intrusive thoughts about that, even dreams and nightmares about it. Cody mentioned a symptom that he had, whereas he grew up in a great neighborhood, he had, didn't have negative encounters with the police growing up, but now all of a sudden he's afraid, he's watching his back, he's looking to make sure everything's okay. That's what we call hypervigilance. When you're super aware of your surroundings and super aware of like everything that you're doing and saying to make sure you're not offending anyone or doing anything that can be perceived as dangerous when you're being Black. Other things that can happen, increased startle response, just feeling really afraid, and it can be triggered by a noise or hearing sirens, police sirens. Can be triggering and cause an increased startle response where you start to feel your heart beating faster. And then, of course, challenges with eating, challenges with sleeping, difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, being tired or exhausted. All of those can be features of due to everything that we're experiencing as a race. And I'll just give an example. I just saw a girl just yesterday, a teenager, and she said she went to school on Wednesday. And the teacher, they're back in school in some of the schools. And the teacher said, "Hey, everybody, how are you all doing?" And she said, "Not good." And the teacher was like, "Oh, no, why? What's wrong?" And she said, "I just couldn't believe that the teacher could look at me, a Black girl, a Black teenager, and ask me what was wrong after hearing the results of the trial, but also after hearing about what happened." She said she probably doesn't even know who Ma'Khia Bryant is at this point. But she said all she could do was break down and cry. She said, "I couldn't even tell her, I couldn't even verbalize." She said, "I just felt sick. I felt like everything was in my body. I felt helpless. I felt heavy." And she said, "I just couldn't explain it." And I said, "Girl, you are experiencing trauma. You're experiencing grief." She said she was having nightmares all night. She couldn't sleep at night. She kept having nightmares. She woke up just constantly thinking about everything, all of the people that we've heard about this week. Just having it heavy on her heart. She said she's scared to talk, she's scared of the police. She said that could have easily been me or my friends. So I don't feel safe around the police. And she said what was hard was that none of her friends, she was like one of the few students of color in her class. And she said nobody else was even thinking about it. They were thinking about their nails. They were thinking about like their TikTok videos. And she was like, I was angry that they don't even have to think about it. Like, this is something I'm having to think about. They have so much privilege. They don't even have to think about it. And I was just like, yep, that's, just try to validate her experience. So I say all of that to say it manifests itself in so many different ways. We have to sometimes pause just to assess what's happening internally. What are my thoughts doing? What is my body doing? My telling me something. Maybe I'm holding on to this trauma. And if I am, I need to find help. I need to find support. How do we lose and stay above and stay on top? We stay on top with our community. We need our support systems. I told her, you may not be able to talk to some of your friends. They may not, but find a friend who gets it. Find a support system, a tribe who actually is understanding and at least willing to listen and to hear you and support you and hold your emotions for you. So we need the support. We need the support of our communities. And then if we are still experiencing those symptoms of trauma and they are getting in the way of our everyday living, they're interfering with our ability to function. I can tell you, it was hard for me to write notes. It was hard for me to be productive the next day. If we find that that's consistently happening, though, then yes, we need to reach out for help, find a therapist, find a support group, find anything, a professional, so that you have the space to process these intense feelings. We can't do it alone. We just
Absolutely.
can't.
Absolutely. No, that's good. Thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you were able to detail that, because a lot of people are struggling right there with that. So this was good. This is what I want to do. I want to shift here. And I know this is going to be a kind of a hot button topic, but I'm going to deal with it because this is what we have to deal with. I have been struggling, and I'm a deep thinker. There's this concept, I'm pivoting a little bit here, you all, about qualified immunity within the police department. I want you, Cody, and I want you, Derek, to speak to this. As a physician, I am responsible for people's lives. As a police officer, or a police officer is responsible to serve and protect people, right? I don't have qualified immunity as a physician. If someone dies under my care, you better believe I'm going to have a lawsuit if I was negligent or in the wrong. And depending on where you all live, those in Illinois, they love to go after the doctors because there is no caps. I don't think they've changed that as far as how much you can sue. Certain states have caps regarding malpractice lawsuits. But I've been thinking about this. I know it's not a perfect analogy, but I said, now, how is it that a police officer has qualified immunity, but yet me as a physician who cares for people and responsible for their lives don't have that? I want you to speak to that. And I know this is a question that, again, was not what I had initially thought, but all day I've been thinking about that. And I know that you all are smart enough to kind of help me out with that.
Sure. You want me to go first, Derek?
Go for it.
All right, cool. Well, look, I'm glad to be back. This Xfinity Wi-Fi is trash. I'm calling you out, Xfinity, because I paid my bill and I got kicked off. And I'm like, looking at my thing. I'm like, why did I disappear? And then thank you.
You pulled a Teddy Riley on us, Cody.
Hey, look, I gotta call people out. I've been paying you a long time because I got this job, so y'all owe me. No, but no. So qualified immunity. So it did not appear. I believe it was 1967 or 1968. And basically, it was enacted to protect Southern legislators or political officials who would be seen in future as racist, and you couldn't go after them after their term in office, right? It was a way to kind of protect whatever has been done. It therefore evolved and it started covering, and Derek hit him on it, that blue wall started covering everything that supports that, right? So like, perfect example, if J. Edgar Hoover was alive today, you could not go back and sue J. Edgar Hoover because you believe, he had something to do with the assassination of Dr. King, right? So that's the origin of it. How it plays into today's reality is now, since there's so much protection, and basically, depending on the state, whoever, a police officer can commit something that if you don't find them guilty, like, or whatever, you can't also pursue a financial holding to them, right? And it's wrong because doctors, you mess up in a surgery, they can get sued, or they can just sue you for anything. Preachers can get sued, right? Like everybody else doesn't have this barrier of protection that basically shields them from any future accusation. It does have to be amended. Do I think, and here's where the controversy might lie in, I do think we need to cap certain things, because now we're starting to deal with kind of that, what if it was setting up, it just can get really hairy really fast. But I do think if you have done something, it doesn't matter when it was found out, right? It doesn't matter how it was found out. If there's accountability, there should be accountability. If you want to put a stamp on how much accountability, that's perfectly fine. But to say, hey, that was in the past, get over it, we protect our own, I think that's inherently dangerous. So, I think Derek can take it from there.
So I don't know if it's because the courts have taken it, or not court, but Congress has taken this up recently to, look at qualified immunity. We got states, was it 15, 20, 25, 30 states, whatever the number is, that are all looking at their qualified immunity laws. I think aside from that, there's still this fundamental issue of why was it enacted in the first place, which means that we're going to protect it, even if the Supreme Court rules, Congress rules, there's this blue wall or whatever this sort of code of conduct is that we have to protect our own, right? So we've got an issue. Like Dr. Shep, you mess up in that, if you were performing a surgery and you messed up in that surgery room, like there are people in that room that are going to start pointing and say, it wasn't me, don't sue. Like it was, right. He messed up, right? The fact that all of those individuals in the room can cover it and then all of them be protected and qualify for immunity as well if they're tried.
Right.
And then when we send in someone to investigate it, it's not an external unit that's investigating it. It's internal affairs that's investigating whether we did something wrong or right. And so I think fundamentally that whole system with how we look in to peer in to see, who has oversight of policing, right? Who's holding people accountable? And I think if you start sticking individuals, right, to be accountable as opposed to cities, like the Laquan McDonald case, the city of Chicago paid out how many millions of dollars, right? Yeah. That wasn't the police department paying that money out. That's taxpayers. That's the city of Chicago taxpayers who ultimately become responsible for that. That doesn't change police behavior. It impacts people in the city of Chicago. And until we start holding individuals accountable so that they can start making choices based on, hey, like I can't hide behind a curtain. I'm going to have to, there's a reckoning that's coming for this decision I make. That's going to be the key. And then let me just, because Taylor asked this question, how did I handle the situation? And I think goes in line with this sort of holding people accountable is I did have that trauma that I think Erica was talking about. It was Erica or Marilyn. As I was driving, I was going back and forth on 94 every week. And after that, I was really anxious every time I got on the highway to drive my 4 hours back to Chicago. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. This was after that encounter with the police officer. Since I knew I wasn't going to make it to finals on time, I asked him, could I pray for him? Again, I was a police chaplain. He looked at me like, really? And he asked me, he said, after all this, you going to pray for me? I said, hey, man, I said, look, you're a soul too. I said, you out here on the streets and God forbid you pull over somebody that's not as, considerate as I am and not as yes sir, no sir as I am. I said, I hate for you to run up on the wrong person. He just looked at me and he let me pray for him. And I prayed for him and let him go on about his way. I tried to pray heaven down on him. He went back to the car staggering. But
let Jesus use you.
I found out, I didn't find out until 2 years later when my wife and I were driving back to Chicago with our kids in the car and was pulled over on the same 94 by a police officer. My wife was driving. Police officer says, who's the owner of the vehicle? Says, my husband, he's here. He says, can I see your driver's license, sir? So asked him what's wrong. He said, there's a warrant out for the arrest of the owner of the vehicle, which was me. I've never done anything, worthy of a warrant. I've done some stuff, but not worthy of a warrant. The police officer that pulled me over a couple of years prior issued several citations to me that were never served to me. And as a result, a bench warrant was issued for my arrest in Berrien County, Michigan. Wow. I went to court in Berrien County with my clergy on, with my police chaplain's badge in my pocket, sat down in front of the magistrate. She's like, I don't understand why you're here. This was after I had to bond myself out on the highway with my wife and children in the car. Wow. Police officer throws me in the back of the car. He wouldn't even put the cuffs on me because he's like, I see that you're a chaplain. I don't even feel right about this, but I got to take you in. Takes me, tells my wife where the ATM is. He wouldn't even put me in a cell. We got to his office. We drank coffee together and waited for my wife to come bond me out. Right. And so I go to court. And when I get to court, the magistrate says, I don't know why you're here. I don't understand. I explained the situation to her. She says, I need you to come back. We want to set a court date. I need you to go before the judge and explain this. I went back several months later, drove 2.5 hours, go to court, got in front of the judge. And the judge says, explain the situation. She says, I want to go into recess, come into my chambers. We talk. The judge says, this should have never happened. I want his badge just as bad as you want it. Let's get his badge. And the judge made a commitment to me in her office that we were going to get his badge, right? And I had to stick with it. I had to keep following up with the judge. few years later, I got a nice envelope sent to my house, Federal Express, and in that envelope was that man's badge and a letter from the judge saying justice had to be served. Right. That doesn't always happen, but for me, that was the moment of relief for my anxiety, that there are people who care. And if we're consistent and diligent, there are people who say, hey, we're going to hold people accountable who do bad things because they should be held accountable. And until we get more people like that who are willing to say, hey, I'll put my robe on the line, I'll put my badge on the line, I'll put all these things on the line, we're not going to see that true reform. And now I can talk to my kids and say, hey, not only do you need to act a certain way, but not all people are bad. You do the right thing. And at the end of the day, I believe God will keep you and bring you home safe, right? And that's what keeps me from having anxiety.
You going to heaven for real? That would have been a different story.
If the Harvey it had to be Jesus, because if the Harvey came out of me, I was going to be dead. I was going to jail.
Wow.
I would have been.
This is not real. That is wow. I have chills. I have chills listening to that right now.
Yeah. Now I know why you're a hope pusher.
Right.
God, the other way will leave me depressed and frustrated. And I think that's the challenge, right? Is if there's so much trauma that if we focused on it all the time, we would remain frustrated, right? Exhausted and frustrated. It doesn't mean that I don't, but I got to carry that hope, because at the end of the day, I'm hoping my kids 20, 30 years from now see a better world than I see. Yeah. And my mother always says, my mother was the first to integrate her schools in Mississippi, in the 60s. And she would say, Derek, I know it's not perfect, but it looks way better than it was 50, 60 years ago. Right. And I just hope that we can continue to move the needle. Now, the young millennial in me wants to see it move a lot faster and a lot more aggressive, and we just get it across the finish line, just get there to the promised land that Dr. King promised. But it's a work, right? And we got to keep the hope that ultimately we're going to get there, and it's a process.
Wow.
Well, this is the reason why we've all come together, y'all.
This is a good one.
This is awesome.
You keep praying for me, Cody.
Somebody would have I would have been writing letters to everybody. I would have been like, Mr. President, everybody would have got a letter that day, boy. I would have been putting this badge, thinking, oh boy, you good. You love me for real.
But look at how he maintained his patience.
Yeah.
So let's look at the steps that had to go through in not just holding someone accountable, but waiting for justice to be served. And it really ties back into the topic. I mean, it looked like Derek had lost. I mean, let's look at it. He lost his inability to take his final exam. And I don't even know what happened with the final exam. You didn't tell us that. I'm sure you passed, because this is a smart brother. I'm sure
that was Grace too, man. My French teacher was from France that summer, and she literally had a flight that night. She rescheduled her flight to the next morning after I explained the police situation.
Oh my God!
To go back to home to France indefinitely. She was only here for one summer teaching in America.
Wow!
Talk about grace and favor.
Grace.
Wow. Yeah. So it looked like he lost, but look, he ended up staying. Persistent patience. He understood his purpose and ended up being on top. And so this is what these shows are all about. This has been so, literally, Erica, you're right. It does give you chills to think about all the Derek has talked about. Even everyone that I have heard today, it has benefited someone here, because there's someone here who's frustrated. They're exhausted and they're angry, but yet you're looking at 4 individuals, 5 include myself, that we have all suffered some type of loss. And again, we all are Black individuals, and we all think differently, we act differently, but our skin color is something that does unite us. We all are human beings. We all are believers. There are things that unite us. But let me tell you, though, when we suffer what we've suffered through collectively, it hurts. And I think today we have been able to provide some type of relief for people, honestly, because this has helped me. And thank you for all those of testimonies, stories, or whatever word you want to put with it, experiences, talking about the symptoms. This has been good. This has been really good. What I want you to do, we're going to wrap it up here. All right. I want you just give two, all right, one or two strategies. All right. And I want to hear from everyone. One or two strategies on how to be able to maintain your mental wellness during this period of time. Okay. You don't have time to go into it and dissect it like we would, but I just want you to provide 1 to 2 tips for people so that they can help move the needle. I heard that phrase out there, back towards mental wellness. So let's start in reverse order this time. I've been starting with the physicians. I'm going to end with the physicians this time. So I'm going to start with you, Cody. All right. Just 1 or 2. I think I know what one was going to be.
Yeah, don't cuss. No. I think for me, 1 or 2, I think for my 2 points, the first one is to just accept it. Something I spoke about when I did my TED talk. I said, I had to accept the fact that all these things and all these feelings that I had about myself and about everything was true. You can't live in this false reality. It is what it is. But when I was able to accept it, I was able to see myself out of it. So the second thing that you need to do is you really have to realize that only you and God can determine what's right for you. And what I mean by that, a lot of times we wait on whoever to give us direction. But my moving forward, my progress in life is not imprisoned by who's ever is shepherding me or not shepherding me, right? Like I don't have to wait till Sunday morning to get the answer. If God is truly who he says he is, and I truly do have access according to the word, I have the right to move my life forward. And don't let your mama, your denomination, your kinfolk, or nobody else stop you from moving forward. And when I accepted that I'm really this is my life, this isn't whoever else's life, it was just better for me. So that's my 2 points. Accept it. It is what it is. Every feeling you have, every person you want to cuss out, all that stuff is true. But the second thing is, if God be for you, he's more than the whole world against you. So you got to just accept that second part and find the strength to move forward.
Wonderful. Derek.
That's good, Cody. I think for me, 2 simple things. One is pursue purpose, right? In life. I think aside from anything else, if you're in the pursuit of what you're supposed to be doing, I think it causes you to have less anxiety about the unknowns and the uncertainty, because as you're pursuing purpose, you'll find where you're supposed to be. And things that happen around you, like the context of all the things that were happening this week, for me, it was hard for me to be anxious about them because I was so busy sort of pursuing the purpose and call for my life to make the space that I'm supposed to make better. I can't be distracted by every buzzard, every pigeon that comes along and makes noise, because it'll take me off of the purpose for my life to make an impact today. And I think we have to avoid all the distractions that move us away from purpose, whether it's, the Chauvin trials or whatever it is. We got to talk about it. We got to address it. But at the end of the day, get back to pursuing purpose and getting it done, what you're supposed to contribute to this world. And then secondly, I think Cody kind of hit it. I'll see it in the same but different way. At the end of the day, I'm a preacher too. And I have to believe that there's a higher being who controls things that I don't understand. And when I can't understand it, I've got to take my hands off of feeling like I need to be in control of everything. You cannot control everything. And as much as we want to be in control, we have to deal with the reality that we're not always in control. I just fortunately have the great privilege of knowing who is in control. And at the end of the day, I wake up every morning and I say, whatever you want to be done, you do it. I'm going to go out here and do my part. And I trust you. I have faith that you'll do the rest. And then I come back home and I feel comfortable in knowing that I did everything I was supposed to do and trust him to do the rest. I sleep well at night, and I hope that I continue to sleep well at night for those two reasons.
Yep. All right, Dr. Griffin. I told y'all to be ready.
Yeah. I'm just going to continue on to something that Derek said. Having control, we don't have control over a lot of things. Well, we don't have control over anything, really, right? There are a few things that we think we have control over, but ultimately, time. We don't have control over time. Time is going to continue to go on and pass no matter what we're doing. So we need to use our time wisely.
That's right.
And in that, making sure that we protect our mental space by disconnecting. Sometimes we just need to disconnect and center and focus on ourselves and what brings us joy and gratitude. And that's going to be, a personal thing for a unique and personal for everybody. But find joy and gratitude as you disconnect. And know that time will move on, and this too shall pass.
Amen.
Yeah. All right.
Well, see, I know me and Marilyn are friends because she took my answers, but that's true sisterhood right there. When you know each other so well, you can read each other's minds. So yes. So I'm like, oh man, but I was like, but of course, because we sisters. So yes, I will just to piggyback, protecting your peace, protect your peace. Disengage from social media, disengage from the news. It's okay. You do not have to watch traumatic videos of Black people being murdered. You don't. And that doesn't mean you're less woke. It doesn't mean you're not connected to your community. It's okay to disengage. It's okay to set a timeline for when you want to check your news and read the news. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm going to take a little holiday from social media, except when we're on Ask the Docs. Come back on a Friday. But, it's okay to just put a pause and to say, you know what, I have to protect my peace by any means necessary. That means it's okay to not have conversations with people who are going to disagree. You don't have to throw your pearls to swine. You can sit back and say, you know what, I'm going to protect my peace. And in doing so, find time for mindfulness. Find time to meditate. If you pray, if you just need to listen to music, go outside, engage with nature, engage with your body, find body movement to your body, especially because we carry so much in our bodies. We have to release that. So, have a dance party for yourself. I jump rope today. I'm 41 years old and I pulled out my jump rope and I jump rope. And it was so much fun. If you're a Peloton, meet me on a bike, I'll see you. But yeah, get it out of your body movement. And then the other thing, which I think is the piggyback off of what Derek said, make meaning. So he said, pursue your purpose. And I would say make meaning. When we find things that are meaningful, when we find things that, are important to us, even if there are things about justice and things that, really get your heart going, join a movement. If there is a way to volunteer your time so you can make sure that you're battling, all of the things that we're seeing and racism, make sure that you are doing something that you can say, you know what, that was very meaningful. That was a meaningful way for me to use my time today. And you will feel fulfilled at the end of the day. So I'll leave you with that.
Awesome. Now, I know Erica, so Erica was just stalling when she was talking about talking about Marilyn took my answer. You see all those answers?
No,
she was just trying. Then she was talking about some pursue peace and don't throw your pearls in the swamp.
She was dropping bars.
I know how Erica works. She just was trying to get it together in her head. Talking about Marilyn took my.
I was like, that's good.
Yeah, right. All right, we're going to wrap this up. This has been an awesome session. Oh my God. I tell you, this series, it dropped on me about 4 weeks ago, and I really have been pursuing how to be able to really help people who feel like they're losing or have lost. I shouldn't even say feel, but they have lost, but yet maintain, stay on top. We must stay on top, regardless of all that has happened, regardless of all that continues to occur. We must stay on top. And if you're in need of a mental health professional to help you stay on top, check out Hope Health Systems. We're located in Woodlawn, Maryland. And if you're in the area, if you're in Maryland, we'll do you some good. You can hit us up at 410-265-8737, hopehealthsystems.com. I believe this show is even helping to generate more referrals. We've had more referrals, you all, in the last 3 weeks than we have in a long, long time. And it's going to continue to. And what I mean by long time is that certain places will close and then we'll get the whole rush. But this has been without a place closing and we're just getting the rush. And so it has been an overflow because people are in need of help. And so even if we're providing some type of help for you each Friday, keep on joining. Please let somebody know. Ask the Doctors is here to help you. These are tremendous people. I have great respect for all 4 of them. I count all of them friends of mine, and look forward to them being back on the show. If they want to reach out to you, you see their names right there. I don't want to go back through each one, but they'll be back. So just know that, okay? And you can hit them all up on social media. Cody does have his own podcast. It is what it is. So check that out on YouTube. So go like and subscribe. Go even to my page. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hope Health Systems. We also have a Facebook page. We want you to go and just be a part of all these different networks so you can get the help that you need. And Hope Pusher, I don't think you have your own podcast yet. All right, but I see it coming for you, something down the line, because you have so much that is within you that needs to be shared. And so I'm so proud to be connected and know that I had a little bit of something to do with where you are today. And so that, man, I tell you, that is awesome. That's awesome. All right, my 2 friends, dear friends, we got to get out of here. And it is time to go, you all. Please be safe. Derek, be safe up there in Michigan with all that has gone on. Be safe there in North Carolina. I hear a lot of that's going on in Chicago, of course. Please be safe. All right, you all. Have a wonderful weekend. Keep wearing your mask. You don't have to have the I can't breathe mask, but keep wearing that mask. Yes, yes, yes. And get the vaccine. All right. Yes. Even if they offer you the J&J vaccine, just know what the qualifiers are, but let's get the vaccine. All right. All right. Take care. We'll see you all next week, panelists. Hold on.
Thanks.
We'll see you next Friday.